15 days to the general election and the nation's electoral umpire, the Independent National Electoral Commission, is worried that fuel scarcity may affect logistics for the polls. The Commission says transporting sensitive and non-sensitive materials for the elections across the country will be difficult if they don't have fuel for their vehicles. INEC says the scarcity of Naira notes and the hardship it has brought on Nigerians who have been expressing their anger over the situation might lead to breakout of violence on election day. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu called on government to address the problem speedily while assuring Nigerians that the general election will hold as scheduled. He gave this assurance after meeting with Governor of the Central Bank, Godwin Emefiele, who promised to provide INEC the monies needed for the elections. All right, with us in the studio is political analyst Razak Olukoba. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good to see you.
And joining us via Zoom, our political affairs analyst Michael Oluwagbemi and the Executive Secretary, Hidden Resources Center, Suleiman Arigbagbo. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right, let me begin with you, Michael Oluwagbemi. Your impressions about how government is handling this matter, talking about the fuel scarcity as well as the Naira scarcity. That is a major concern for a majority of Nigerians and even INEC leading up to the elections.
Good morning to your listeners and viewers, and thank you very much for having me this morning once again. I think every Nigerian that has been seeing the trends since the end of last year will be amazed that the fuel crisis has persisted up until this time. It's rather very unusual, given that this government had prided itself as having conquered the fuel scarcity or queues since it came into governance, especially the perennial queues that always came up during the festive period. And these kind of queues that actually started just before Christmas and continues to persist after Christmas into the election period definitely raises some serious questions and suspicion. And that there's a grand design of sabotage within the government itself. And I think this is something that's of concern to everybody. The same is also true, of course, about the currency crisis. As far as I'm concerned, is an own goal. It's a self-manufactured crisis. It does not need to exist. The Nigerian people do not need to be subjected to any kind of crisis for owning money. Owning money is not illegal. It's not against the law. And the law has provided for how money can be changed in an orderly manner over a substantial period of time. There's no way you can tell me that you can replace 3 trillion naira in an economy in 6 weeks. Effectively, that's what the central bank is trying to do, saying that it announced to Nigerian people that it was going to do this in the month of November, even, let's say, late October. But it effectively did not even display currency or make it available even for commissioning until the middle of December. And then to now tell me that from December 15 to January 31 is sufficient, 6 weeks. It's never done anywhere in the world. So I think that's a pure own goal. It should never have occurred. And what is right is simply right. I think the various voices in the political spheres, especially the governor, the 36 state governor, this should not be a partisan issue. Even government, the state governors and the FCT, they require cash sometimes to run their government. Nigeria is still largely a cash society. And for the CBN actually to even come out to claim that it has only been able to print 300 billion to replace 2 trillion it was planning to withdraw from the economy itself is an admission of failure. So I think the CBN needs to find a way to basically make the Nigerian people whole. It is not illegal to own money. When you say something is a legal tender, you're bearing the full faith and credit of the federal government of Nigeria. The meaning of faith there means that anytime I want to redeem it, it has to be redeemed. There has to be faith that there has to be faith that money will be turned into value. So the full faith and credit of the Nigerian government is at risk. And so we must require that all old legal tenders should continue to be acceptable until at such time the CBN is able to replace every single dime. You cannot force me into your banking system. There's nothing in law that says I cannot refuse to be banked. You cannot simply tell anybody that, oh, if you bring cash, then you're only limited about the amount you can take back. That by itself is impugning the meaning of money and currency. So I think these are the issues, and I hope that these issues are fully interrogated at the Supreme Court, where the states have gone to sue the federal government, and that the federal government can retrace its step back so that the full faith and credit of the Nigerian people in Nigerian money is restored.
All right. Let me come to you, Razak. The point there is a lot of Nigerians have concerns, especially as we build up to the election. Some have even asked questions. The BBC, the different media organizations, civil society organizations have asked INEC, are you sure we can conduct this election? But INEC is saying, by God's grace, we should, all things being equal. However, let us put this and that and that and that in place. Just yesterday, we had a rhetoric from former President Olusegun Obasanjo regarding, I hope nothing will truncate this election. When questions begin to come like that, instead of galvanizing, mobilizing everybody with assurance for the election, there are some kind of doubts here and there with the questions, with the rhetorics and so on. Do you have concerns that all of this will have huge impact on the election, whether it's apathy or otherwise?
Well, thank you very much, Mike. Is it between catching thieves and securing your democracy? We have to decide. Me, I would prefer to secure my democracy. We know how we got to this point. And the decision taken by the federal government on the currency is an economic policy. Election is a political decision. So if you put it side by side, does it have to go simultaneously? And that is the concern we have at the moment, that must we do the currency swap at the moment? Immediately you introduce a policy that appears to have an ulterior motive, there's a crisis to it. Either the timing, either the precision, either the accuracy. And with the introduction of the currency at this time, at the beginning we felt it was because we want to reduce engagement of voters with Naira. That was what we had in mind. But shortly after that, we discovered that some cabals took over the process and it became a story. I like what INEC is doing, and that is what we expected from INEC. We have to embolden ourselves. The synergy among Nigerians will make Nigeria work. We have to start looking in that direction. That once we have taken a decision that we must have elections for time, anything that will come as a challenge, we have to rise against it. Since I begin to have political consciousness, there's no time election is coming that we won't have apprehension. Maybe it's our nature. Maybe it's the way we design our democracy. Maybe it's the way we design our politics. So this time around, there's nothing new about it. What I expect INEC is to have emphasized all these things. I never knew the Naira will come in, but that there will be no fuel. Immediately, fuel thing crop is head. I expect INEC to have emphasized that this may be one of the sabotage we should be expecting. And that he has met the CBN governor. You should also go and meet the NNPC.
No, he did.
No, he did.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And make arrangements with the governors of each state. Even if we are going to deny commuters, commercial commuter time, me and you, that on the day of election, the previous day of election, to make our democracy survive, I think you should do that. You know, if you read Stephen and Daniel, How Democracy Dies, these are indices of what led to the death of democracies all over the world. We are beginning to cite examples all over the world. It's not when namely to take over that creates democracy. When we have some things that are missing, when we have some policy somersault, when we have apprehension that internal government is coming, when we have that coup is coming, we are not discussing about issues that are coming from presidential candidates. That's the indices of the death of democracy. And we have to brace up towards it. What we should be talking about now is how to combat all those issues. On the Naira issue, what INEC chairman has done on the fuel thing is fine. And I think and I hope that it's going to work. On the Naira issue, we have several alternatives. It's either The court has taken the decision on it, and all of us must support that decision.
No, but the government has come to say that the court lacks jurisdiction to do that.
And that is why it is appropriate to warn the president and the executives that between the economy and your democracy, the intention is, of course, it's a legitimate thing to change Naira note all the time. You can't run two major political decisions simultaneously at a critical moment like this. Changing of currency and election. It's risky. So it is up to the federal government to demonstrate the capacity. And as for me, when you have refused to combat your cabal in your nation, to the extent that they internationalize the operations, it becomes difficult for you to kill. The cabals in the oil sector, the cabals in the currency trafficking has internationalized. So it's so strong that between now and the election time, CBN don't have the capacity to combat and defeat the currency problem that we have.
One would like to ask is, who is this cabal? Because you've mentioned cabal like twice.
Yeah.
In for fuel scarcity and now the scarcity of the Naira. Who is this cabal that is bringing the country into this level?
People who run, who traffic at the expense of Nigerians. And what do you mean by traffickers? Racketeers, currency racketeers, who sell your currency. Those are the cabals. So they racket the currency. So CBN, between now and the time of election, we all know that they have the local international dimension, both oil and the currency thing. So for us to be able to combat it between now and the election, it is not possible. It's a reality. So it is either the president take a decision to suspend it, the decision to elongate what the court has said, or government must learn how to create a platform for racketeers to meet. This is an opportunity for them to meet at the junction. The fuel racketeers, the currency racketeers, and people who want to take advantage of the coming election also. It's not a good thing. So it is a good advice that people have been giving the president that if you want to catch thief another day. If you want a democracy to survive, let it survive now. It is risky to combine it. It's two major decisions, economic and political decisions. You can't take both at the moment. So our own advice to the president is to allow democracy to survive. You pay the price for democracy too. What pay the price for democracy too? We don't want anything to happen to our democracy. And it is better for our teams to survive for some other day. The corrupt people that they are running after, to survive for some months and allow democracy to thrive.
Aren't they also a threat to our democracy? Aren't they also a threat to our democracy?
Who is the threat to our democracy? When you have your money, when you have your no, it will create.
Vote buying is not a threat to our democracy. It will create an incitement.
What I mean is that the capacity to do both, we don't have it now. When people have their money in the bank, it creates an opportunity for people to be incited.
Right.
And that would jeopardize the coming election. Already look at the picture of what is happening in town. They are not talking about roads. It's not about good earth. My legitimate money in the bank, I can't have access to it. So you have created a pace, a stage for mobocracy, the mob to take over.
All right. Michael, let me come to you on this. Several people have reacted and analyzed the situation from the perspective of saying that if the CBN had made a very wide and robust consultation with all of the stakeholders that would make this work, that the outcome could have been different. Of course, some persons mentioned the issue of the civil society organizations, labor unions, the governors, National Assembly, banks, telecoms, media, even political parties, that if everybody was on board with this, that it would have been a little more seamless. Do you see it that way, that the CBN may not have consulted very widely before coming up with this?
Yeah, I mean, it's the facts. Facts are sacred, and it's not the CBN under Emefiele, the current governor, has history of knee-jerk policy decision making, and trying and open and making amends on the go and changing and fixing policies as they move along, almost as if they're winging it. Even this policy itself, how many changes have you witnessed? How many circulars have they issued since December 15 when the policy came to implementation? First, they said that people could withdraw 500,000. I think it was first 50,000. People made noise. They changed it to 500,000. Later, they brought it down back to 20,000. Later, they said you could not get cash over the counter. You have to go to ATM. Later, they changed it again. It shows our facade nature of policy making, and it is very, very. It's something that has become very, very known as the modus operandi of this current CBN governor. I've never seen any organization so incompetent to be said. There's really no implementation of policy. Even the simple anchor borrowers program in the agriculture sector is replete with corruption. And this is the fact that everybody keep avoiding the subject matter. The central bank under the current governor has mismanaged the organization, and such that even its simple monetary policy of cash management, currency management, the simplest of its function, it has mismanaged. So we should be interrogating just beyond the political undertones, the implications, the lack of transparency that is associated with this particular policy. We're talking about the mismanagement of the central bank under the current governor. The gross incompetence of not engaging state governors who are the managers of the economy. Even the Constitution identifies them as the members of the National Economic Council and the Vice President as its chairman. And he, the CBN governor, is a member of that NEC. When did he go to the NEC to present his idea? When did he engage with the 36 state governors and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory with respect to managing a currency change, which grossly affects the economy? I mean, I look at the summons, the detailed legal documents that the governors actually used to sweep. One of the testimonies they gave, one of the affidavits they attached to their filings, was the fact that they cannot manage effectively their states without cash. He should have known this if he had gone to the NEC to actually make a presentation, to actually consult with them, rather than acting like monetary policy is a secret cult. No, it is not. I blame in some part the National Assembly that give such one person, an elected person, such enormous powers over our lives. He determines the value of what is in our pocket. He does not even consult with his fellow board governors. He goes to make out willy and nilly statements to affect the value of the resources that we wake up every day to try to acquire as citizens, which it comes in currency. But when he makes a wrong pronouncement, the way he does all the time, almost as if the head and the mouth is not well coordinated, it destroys the value of the Naira in my pocket. I wake up every morning and it destroys the value of the Naira because of the policy, the willy-nilly way it goes about making that policy. So somebody needs to call the central bank governor to order. The National Assembly tried. First, he avoided all the summons, and later he appeared, almost as if he's not subject to your jurisdiction. Independent central banking and monetary policy making does not mean you do not have oversight of elected representatives. Even the law that created the CBN talked about regularly briefing the National Assembly. When has the National Assembly held him held his feet to fire? We should be seeing this central bank governor appearing every day, almost not allowed to do his job for the next 365 days if the National Assembly is serious. You have to call him to order. And beyond that, we have to look at the provisions of the law. There's nowhere in that law, how can you talk, we are saying a reasonable time to withdraw 3 trillion naira from the economy. Why are you even withdrawing 3 trillion naira? In his own claim, the society has to go cashless because of corruption. Who is the most corrupt person in this government today? The answer is blowing in the wind. We cannot continue to act and we cannot continue to cut our nose to spite our face. We need economy to have cash. Even the most advanced economies in the world, United States of America, has cash. Is still a primary use of a component of the economy. In Nigeria, after all, we have about 47 trillion in terms of our M0. That's the amount of money in circulation. And we have, of that amount, we have about 17 trillion. Of the 47 trillion, we have about 17 trillion in the bank. And we only have about 3 trillion in circulation. So it's not actually such a bad structure if you think about it. 47 trillion of money in the economy and only 3 trillion in cash. But that 3 trillion in cash is what is creating the economy. Many vast local government areas, states like Borno State, like Yobe State, have just 2 local governments. Of over 27, 30, 40 local governments, only 2 have banks. And yet you are saying people have to return money to banks in order for them to get cash. Granted, there's agency banking. I'm sure there's a vast swath of Nigeria that does not have anything called agency banking, including the fact that there's not even signal on the phone. It's not everywhere in Nigeria. Even despite anything you hear about NTN everywhere you go, there are many villages in Nigeria that does not have signal. I have to climb mountains in order to be able to get signal. So this is gross incompetence if the central bank governor does not know this. And it's even more of a political harakiri if the members of the National Assembly have not identified that for the last 5 to 6 years, this central bank governor has continued to wreck the life of Nigerian people by his gross incompetence. It's time to call him to order.
Right. All right, let's bring the conversation back to the studio. I know you've been waiting to react to some of the things he said, because we had a governor yesterday, that's the governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule, who said that this matter was, he goes for the meeting, the INEC meeting, and that it wasn't brought to them. They didn't have that conversation. So I'm wondering if you also see it in that light, that he not consulting widely is also a major problem, a challenge to what we're seeing now.
Well, I don't see that as an issue. That's why I had a slight deviation from my colleague. You see, the more we centralize issue in Nigeria, the more problem we fall into. The major responsibility of the federal government, currency is one of it, the security of our nation, and a few other things. What the federal government has made its business is the reason why they lose attention on major issues like the currency. So, to begin to centralize the decision on currency again, which we have always been arguing against, that why must everything be centralized? Buhari is not the business of Buhari to secure Lagos State. It's not his business to secure Nasarawa State. It's the business of the governor. It was because the president took everything as his responsibility. That's why we are blaming him for everything. So let us reverse this policy or let the Naira run simultaneously. If you continue to do that, it will be okay. If the federal government had focused its attention on the little job that he has to do, the running after racketeers will not be difficult for them. The decision on oil, you don't give license to people. Modular refinery is not possible. State police is not possible. People stay to have access to their resources is not possible. Why won't you blame Buhari for everything? The election must hold. The moment we hold this election, it's going to be a major plus for Nigeria. We learn and cement our democracy every day. Between 2019 to time, this is the time we have had the highest registration of voters, over 100 million. That's an advancement of our democracy. So we can't throw away all these things that we have gained and that we have acquired democratically. We must cement it. I knew very well that we are going to have issues like this. And I now know that INEC should have that protection in their mind. I'm happy with the way INEC is emboldening Nigerians now, not in the way they were talking before, as if the man sabotaging is in INEC office. Even when INEC office is born today, they must have a backup. In 22 hours, there must be a replacement. And that picture they should have in their mind. So Nigerians should brace up. The president should be all out now, should be talking to us. The president should be emboldening us. You should be talking to us. You should mobilize and incite us against all the criminals. I will vote. And I don't want Nigerians to be under any illusion that they're not going to vote. We have nice candidates. We have Tinubu. We have Atiku. We have Obi. Despite the fact that some people are creating platforms for angry Nigerians, that's not how to run a nation. You turn to political parties to a platform for Nigerians instead of a platform when young men will listen to solution of their country. So despite that, we have to vote for one of them. They're nice candidates. I'm my candidate that I'm going to vote for. And nothing's going to change my mind because I'm convinced that the repeated crisis of the problem in Nigeria, someone has had a solution to it by the example of how he has led his political life in the past. So I'm going to vote. Nigerians should vote. The president should take an accede to the decision of the court. Let Nigerians have access to their money.
Okay. Now, Suleiman, let me come to you on this. The point there is the president, as we're talking, is not only the cash crisis that is the issue. There's always also the fuel. And the president last week said we should give him 7 days for him to, get all these things together. So everyone is waiting for what will be the outcome tomorrow. I wonder, sitting down where you are and, creating a mind picture of what will be the outcome or how solutions will come, I wonder what you expect after tomorrow's meeting that the president is going to have.
There's nothing that will happen. The president has been scammed. It's unfortunate. I am one of those who wanted General Modu Buhari. I'm not so familiar with this President Buhari. Unfortunately, the man is old. He means well, but unfortunately, I mean, the Buhari of the 80s would have seen through this scam. He's been scammed, and we should accept it. It's unfortunate. I insist, I'm one of those who support this policy, but the timing and the implementation has messed us up. Not only that, this policy has been deliberately sabotaged. And perhaps Buhari could have seen through this if he had other people who are indeed genuine with him around him. Unfortunately, the closest people to him are his enemies because they do not share his agenda for a corruption-free Nigeria. I'm wondering why he's taking the president so like that. He has people around him, people who are going to the court now to oppose what the Supreme Court is saying. These are people who have messed up this government. All the good intentions that the president had, they didn't share it. They have been making money. The corruption that has happened under this government is mind-blowing, yet the man came with the intention to stop corruption. So unfortunately, he put the wrong people to man his gate. One example is the CBN. When he didn't remove the CBN governor when he came, we thought, okay, maybe it's because he's a Democrat and blah, blah, blah. Then he reappointed him. What policy of the CBN has succeeded? None. So nothing is going to happen. The fuel scarcity is going to continue till after tomorrow when the president, when his 7 days elapsed. The money scarcity will continue. The only thing that can stop the money scarcity is for the president to order the CBN to reject the old notes, because in the first place, they didn't even print enough to go around and didn't give it enough time to circulate in the system. So we know that we are already in big problem. For us to salvage this, let me tell you, the president intended to catch this. Unfortunately, the thieves he wanted to catch, he was waiting at the door, expecting them to bring their Ghana must go to come into the bank. And he said, okay, where did you get this money? Whereas those people with the bank managers at the back here had already changed all the money. So it's ordinary Nigerians that are suffering. So we plead with the president, let us return to status quo ante, as the Supreme Court have said. Even though the Supreme Court will meet on the 15th to look at the issue, I am appealing to the president to stand down his government's opposition to the decision of the, take this as a saving grace, save face. Let us have this. It's important that we have this election. And not just because we are going to throw in another set of oppressors, but because these are some of the things that help us to keep the fiber of the country.
All right.
Well, it's going to give us some aspiration that things could be better, but more importantly, it's going to prevent us from running into unnecessary anarchy. Anarchy this country cannot afford. We need the election
we need to make judicious use of the time so that Michael can say his last words before we wrap up. Yes. Michael, I'm coming to you now. Your last words in about 3-4 seconds.
All right. Well, I think my co-panelists have touched upon various issues which are germane to the matter at hand, the matter of our democracy, the importance of us being focused on that rather than trying to play games with the national monetary system. And just at the end of the day, what we are talking about here, if you ask me, is just ensuring that our leaders are responsible. It's an act of irresponsibility.
All right.
If we go into an election with all of these problems and are not trying to solve it, but I can.
Thank you, gentlemen. Political analyst Razak Olukoba, who joined us in the studio, as well as political affairs analyst Michael Uluwagbemi, as well as the Executive Secretary, Hida Resources Center, Suleiman Arigbagbu, for your time on the program.